Hello!
Hey guys, Leah Michelle Resistance Chicks. It is February 26, 2017. We are following up with our other stories that we have done over the past couple of days about these pedophilia rings. We want to bring this to you. We want to actually bring you kind of some good news and how it's being dealt with. If you didn't see our video where Donald Trump came out on the 23rd saying, listen, we are going after pedophilia, we are going after child pornography, we're going after these things, and we've already had 1,500 arrests within the very short period that he has been in office versus 400 arrests that had taken place in last year, cumulatively.
That was in 2014. That's
as a total.
Numbers they had.
So. It's total. It was a total.
So now we're covering, and I can't even do the British accent for this one.
No, it's not funny, and it's not fun for us either.
You guys had some major problems. And just like we have major problems, and it's the elite all over the world.
Right.
And obviously, I didn't hear about this. This was 2015, a little bit more recent. And
but I think it goes to show a push and an awakening in other countries that this is a problem that we can no longer allow to take place.
So I guess because of
the peanut gallery. When we started this video, and she's ready to say something.
It's for the victims. It's
exactly.
For people to recognize.
Exactly.
At one time, somebody had to recognize that black people were human beings.
Right.
They were treated horribly, and people would watch black people be treated horribly as slaves.
Right.
But then there was Uncle Tom's Cabin written.
Right.
And so this is for victims.
Yeah.
I agree with Trump. The death penalty for anybody who does this. I think they all should die. I think that would stop it.
He was quoted as saying that in 2012.
If you start killing them for doing this,
right.
they're going to think twice.
There is nothing worse, in my opinion, than stealing the innocence of a child.
Years.
But this is for victims and to raise awareness for them.
You're not going to
exactly
that they are human beings and they deserve justice.
At least a year
we should
for each
never
victim.
stop talking
victims,
about
right?
this until it's obliterated from the face of the earth. So, what do you got, Leah?
Yeah, thank you, Peanut.
Thank you, Peanut Gallery.
Thank you, Peanut. She's always right. Always
we should
a good
start
word.
calling her Peanut.
So I'm going to start with this, and I'm going to plug Milo here again because he was one of the first guys to out Jimmy Savile. He was a weird. This guy, I guess you guys had him on your TV a lot. He was a program.
Looks like
he worked with kids. I know. And I guess it started with him. I guess this Louis Theroux, he had this documentary, but he knew, and he still stayed friends with him, even though he knew that he had molested 2 girls in their teens, which is crazy that there's such a disconnect. And then after he did this documentary and after it came out after he died, he's like, oh, I should have put 2 and 2 together. Well, yeah, you should have. So the BBC, I guess you guys probably already know this, has been accused of failing to stop the monstrous abuse by its stars, including Jimmy Savile, who since his death had been found to be a serial sex offender. The macho culture at the publicly funded media organization made staff fearful of making complaints, especially about its top stars, a report has found. And we're not just covering the BBC. This goes all the way to your parliament, deep, just awful. Jimmy Savile was celebrated as a TV and radio presenter who was a prolific sex offender. He would groom young girls and young boys. A review identified 72 victims. Wow. And so there was this cover-up, but then of course the BBC got off scot-free. But we're going to go into this. And so you guys, because of this Jimmy Savile, a lot of stars, and they started to uncover that you actually had this thing called Operation Hydrant where if it was more than a year old and it involved somebody of standing or somebody in an organization of some sort,
prominence,
churches, orphanages, things like that, they wanted to know. They wanted to put the numbers together. And so in doing so, the number of suspects which being investigated over historical child abuse allegations, that's what they called it, now stands at more than 2,200, while 302 are described as persons of public prominence. And out of the 2,200 offenders, 286 are dead. and 1,200 are offenders alleged to have committed crimes in institutions like schools,
Medical establishments, children's homes.
and then because they
Yeah,
had a lot of children.
And we said this before in the past. Whenever you're going to find sex offenders that prey on children, pedophiles, they will go and they find.
I don't know how many schools you have in the UK, but 288 of them were identified. Okay, 204 children's homes, 86 churches. Now I'm not telling you not to go to church, but check your church, check your pastor. 39 medical establishments, 25 prisoners and young offenders institutes, 22 sports venues, 10 institutions of community, and then 82 other institutions, military places of entertainment, guest houses.
The White House should have a special place where victims can come and say, this person did this.
Oh.
And if the victims could create an army of victims, because there's such a shame about it.
I like it.
It's hard to say.
It is. It's very difficult to say because
It
a lot of
is.
people.
I mean, the fact that they even came out, right?
Anonymously,
right.
you know, and then that person can be investigated, but the victims are the biggest army
Right.
to destroy this.
Right. Highly disturbing. Look at the Operation Hydrant by 60 Minutes of the Australia. If these things disturb you,
Well,
don't.
you're not going to play the whole thing. It's 30 minutes.
It's
long.
actually not. That it stops off here. I don't know how much I'm going to play.
The biggest political scandal Britain has ever faced will be exposed tonight. It involves a secret network of the highest office holders in the land, past and current members of parliament, cabinet ministers, judges, diplomats, even one of the country's top
And this is
spies.
going on in the United States
These men are
right now.
accused of some of the most sadistic child sexual abuse imaginable on hundreds of victims, some as young as 8. More confronting still are claims that children were killed in order to protect this network of predators, including one boy whose father worked at the Australian High Commission in London. For over 40 years, the evil child predators acted with complete impunity, hiding behind the facade of respectability. But no longer.
Like that music.
The idea here is that boys were taken this
They
young
were
in.
children, often the most vulnerable, placed in the care of the state only to be betrayed. Systematically trafficked to the most powerful men in the land. How many times were you raped?
Wow. Maybe twice, 3 times a week.
Boys and girls both, farmed out to pedophiles like throwaway toys.
There would be a group of girls and a group of men, and the men would basically single out the girls.
And these were like people from children's homes.
Tonight, 3 victims speak out. Claims of a monumental cover-up. That children were murdered. One of them, the 15-year-old son of the Australian High Commissioner's chauffeur.
I just said to him that I think he's been taken by someone high up.
And what did that senior policeman say to you?
He said to me, you keep saying things like that, you could get hurt.
And the secret pedophile brotherhood, who to this day demand their right to have sex with children.
This guy.
What constitutes consent?
The willing involvement of a child is really quite simple.
A sex scandal at the very highest levels of the British establishment. Child sexual abuse victims come forward to point the finger at very powerful men. Serving members of the British Parliament, cabinet ministers, lords, spies, even senior police, incriminated in a VIP pedophile ring for the privileged and powerful.
And again, this is happening right now in the United States.
It happened to me. It happened to others. And why would it go on for so long? Why didn't somebody just step in and say, we need to investigate this?
We need to
Richard Kerr is
investigate
now
this.
54 and a clearly damaged man. His life began to fall apart when at the age of 9 he was sent to the now infamous Kincora Boys' Home in Northern Ireland, run by men who would later be convicted of the frequent rape of children in their care. How soon did the abuse start when you were sent there?
A week later, maybe.
Within a few years, Richard and other boys from the home were being trafficked around the country. You were brought across essentially to be playthings for pedophiles in England.
Boy toys. I felt afraid to say no. As long as I performed well, they said they'd take care of me.
They said they'd take care of him.
So when you first came to London, Richard, what was the first place you were brought to?
The first place, I was taken to Dolphin Square.
Today, Richard Kerr is bringing us back to the place where he was taken to meet the men who ruled the country. An upmarket apartment complex called Dolphin Square, just minutes from the Houses of Parliament.
And the thing of it is you wonder how can they allow the
happened in
Muslims
here,
and the
Richard?
Islam? Well,
What happened in here, I was taken in here, I was told to sit down on the bed,
it's not a big deal.
and he started to
It's
take
his
my
son.
clothes off.
Still hurts, doesn't it?
Of course it hurts. I've never forgotten, it hurts.
Richard was brought here to have sex with politicians and other high-ranking members of the British establishment, including members of the House of Lords.
I think a lot of people just don't think that this really happens. I think you just
Are
like
any of them
mentally
still in
can't
power?
believe that this really happens.
Older, very old, lords.
He probably didn't even know who those people were.
Richard was one of
does-
dozens of boys
I mean,
and
like,
girls,
yeah,
almost
recognized,
all
yeah.
from state institutions, brought to the homes of the rich and powerful to be forced into sex with adults.
My soul at that time was being destroyed. And he took away everything I had. Everything I had.
British police are now investigating compelling evidence that dozens of children suffered similar fates.
I've read some articles that it would be in almost
I
hundreds of thousands.
I'm 11.
The happy smile hides a terrible secret. When this video was taken of 11-year-old Esther Baker, she had already been sexually abused for years. At the age of 6, a family member took you to other pedophiles, didn't they?
Yes. There would be a group of girls and a group of men.
I don't want to just gloss over her testimony. I want to kind of keep going
Instead, according
to
one
identifying
of
some
those
of these
men,
people.
also named by other witnesses we've spoken to, was Leon Britton, the former British Home Secretary. One of the most powerful men in the land, Leon Britton should have been prosecuting pedophiles. Instead, according to Darren and other witnesses, he was one of them.
He likes boys to dress in women's underwear and then to be in a room alone.
Skip some of this. Keep going.
As we've uncovered tonight, the evil network of pedophile information exchange.
PI was an organisation for people who had a sexual attraction to children,
The way he
and we
explains
thought
this is-
our illegal interest in children ought to be made legal if it concerned relations with young people who were consenting to a relationship, if they were willingly involved.
I can't
Tom
listen to this
O'Carroll
again.
is
Involved.
the head of the British Siebelmen, the head of Tell this man.
I know this man.
Who is he?
This Peter Hayman?
Did he have sex with you?
Yes, we had oral, but yes.
The paedophile who called himself Peter Henderson was in fact Sir Peter Telford Hayman, deputy head of the British Secret Service, MI6, one of the most powerful men in Britain. Hayman was caught with diaries full of sadistic sexual fantasies about children. But the spy chief was allowed to walk free.
He's the one who carried the brown book,
What was the brown book?
like a brown diary. He put notes in it.
What, so he kept notes about what he'd done to you?
Maybe what I say. He had a brown dark book. He carried it in his pocket.
For decades, powerful men like Hayman were allowed to get away with their crimes. But even today, Tom O'Carroll argues,
You keep saying, by the way, it's sex with children. It's not sex with children. It's sex, most people think, is
guilty about it.
if they were traumatised, they wouldn't have gone along.
You see that, babe? Approvingly, how sexual relations with that little girl can be, quote, negotiated by hints
Yeah.
Why
and
is
signals.
this guy
We're
not
going
in
round and
jail?
round in circles. I've
For
given you
even
my answer
holding
multiple
these
times,
views.
so I'll finish there.
Which is a non-answer, you just can't answer.
Well, you think it's a
They kind of
non-answer, I
get in
think
an
it's an
argument.
answer.
This guy's got a red face. You can see that he's
Alright.
just like, he's getting really angry. Trying to interview. How could you interview a guy like that?
No, I couldn't. I was a no.
It's almost.
Disgraceful secrets are only now coming to light.
That's another news.
Okay.
Men occupying some of the highest positions in the land, whose depraved crimes have scarred a generation of children. But for the victims of this scandal, for those who have lived their lives in pain, there is no walking away from this fight. You realise it's going to boil down to the word of a woman 20 years on, remembering what happened to her when she was between the ages of 6 to 11 years old.
Yeah.
They're really going to go your credibility, aren't they?
Yeah, I'm ready for that because I've been very open about my life and everything that's gone on in my life. There's nothing that I've got nothing to hide.
Wow. Bravo.
I'm lucky to survive, but I survived. Some of the others didn't. I'm the door that opens up everything.
And to those men who abused you, you are their worst nightmare. They're going to be lying in bed at night worried that Richard Kerr's evidence is going to catch up with them.
They're gonna get a knock on the door.
Good for him.
I think there has to be an element of cover-up or conspiracy, call it what you want.
Men like Conservative MP Zach Goldsmith. If it's true, and the evidence suggests that it is,
Yeah.
this is, isn't it, the biggest political scandal in British history?
I think that's right. I think there was very compelling evidence that very senior people engaged in terrible acts and were then protected by the establishment. I have no doubt at all about that, but I think the genie is out of the bottle.
Coming up, from abuse.
Is the genie out of the bottle?
And you said this was from 2015?
Yeah. Yeah, so I've been looking to try to find some arrests, some more arrests. Obviously, some of them have been caught. Obviously, the MI6 guy got set free. I kind of want to take you to our next video where Putin in 2013 mentions the West and mentions the pedophilia rings and things like that, and how he knew at his top levels. And he's like, I'm not bringing Islam into this country. I'm not bringing the perversion in my country. I'm going to try to kick it out wherever it's at. And so I'm going to take you to that video, and that's kind of going to round up today's things. So,
okay. All right. Yes. Like, comment, subscribe to Mass
If you want to have more of this.
All right. So all last week, like all that Alex Jones could cover was the fact that he had been wrongfully wronged.
Right.
Rightfully wrong. He was right about it. And so he covered that for an entire week, and he did a telethon. Well, this is Resistance Chicks covering this topic. We will exhaust it at some point, and but just stick with it.
Rounding this off,
It's a horrible topic, and nobody wants to talk about it.
And that's why it's not being covered, because nobody wants to talk about it, because
it's like being a part of the Underground Railroad.
Exactly.
You can be a part of the Revolution War to free these people,
right,
and give victims a place to speak
right, and a
talk.
voice.
Because this is happening in every single family,
right?
Yep.
And if you're a police officer, FBI, NSC, CIA, and you're not exposing it, then you are it.
Right.
You're covering it up.
If you're in the law enforcement and you're not exposing this, then you are it and you're covering it up.
And the same with every family. How many girls have we heard?
The numbers are staggering. The numbers that they can actually record. I think it's 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 5 boys,
really think the boys
that are molested.
I don't think the boys speak out.
The boys don't speak out because they kind of feel ashamed, I think, a little bit.
And we have to let them know they can be an army.
Yeah, you definitely can be an army.
And put a stop to
there
it.
is no number that I can put on the amount of people that I personally know who were molested when they were children. I couldn't number. If I had to, I could probably guess. Through my life, I've probably met 300 or 400 people that I know
up of it,
that were molested as children.
Here's the thing. I can only name one instance where a woman that I knew, her mother found her father molesting the daughter. And you know what she did? She locked him in the car and she set the stinking car on fire.
Yes.
She did not get in trouble. The judge let her go. The fire department came, got the guy out. He went to prison, and you know what happened? They killed him in prison.
And if you're one victim, believe me, that person has 4 or 5 other victims.
Right.
If you speak out, then the other victims will
Because
speak
here's
out.
the thing, you guys.
I have another friend, an older friend, like mom's friend, whose whole family knew that she was molested by her father up until the day she was married, and her mother married her off at 17
to get her
out of the situation. And this whole family, even her husband, knew. They still were nobody, because why? Christians forgive. You know what? I'm going to forgive you with my AR-15.
Okay, no, but you can forgive somebody in jail for sure. And
Yeah.
and that's the problem with the
That's when I'm going to kill first and ask Jesus to forgive me.
The statute of limitations makes things like this very difficult. So when the statute of limitations has expired, I think in America, what is it?
Like 20 years or something.
Right. When that has already expired, then everybody in the family needs to, what is it when you just...
Disavow.
Well, not just disavow, but like excommunicate practically that person. You don't ever have anything to do with them. You shame them. Yes, you shame them. Okay? I mean, literally, this is not something that you put up with. This is not something... Here's the difference, and I think we get confused about... I'm going to finish my sentence here. About forgiveness. Okay? You can forgive somebody in your heart, but when molestation is there, and I'm going to speak this out to you, and whether you want to agree with me or not, you do not ever let that person back in your life. And if it happened to your child, you don't let it back in. You don't let that person in their life. You don't let that person in your life.
They should be in jail. They don't belong in a person's life.
No, you do not. You can forgive them before God, okay? But you have to make a stance, because they should be in jail.
Right.
They should be in jail. Child molestation, like Trump said, is, you should be killed for that. But in America, you're not killed for it, but you should be in jail for the rest of your life. And if you're not, then it is up to the community to do everything that they can to make sure that that person pays for what they have done, so that it doesn't happen to other victims.
Also, to protect the community, and if they can realize what they did wrong, they might repent.
Exactly. If they can realize what they did,
God.
yeah, they might repent.
So I
But
actually...
God has no statute of limitations.
God has no statute.
And back to the Operation Hydrant, I thought that it would be really good for you guys to go, and there's a website for you to go to, and you can make your claim in the UK, and you can see the potential offenders, you can see the number. What is staggering to me, and I don't think that you guys quite understand, when we talk about homosexuals are more likely to, when it comes to child abuse, the percentage of those who were homosexually abused is much higher. With the homosexuals comprise 3% of the population, but they do an extraordinary amount of the abuse. So this is this giant pie here that you have, and predominantly male, as we were talking about. Homosexuals aren't always molesters.
Yeah.
But the
Absolutely.
rate at which homosexuals molest, they have more victims. Of the people that I know who are victims, females,
It was a heterosexual.
It was normally like a father or an uncle who may have had one victim or two victims. But then when it goes into the molestation of males, they have somewhere upwards of 150 to 200 victims and that's how you get this disproportionate number.
Right.
But what we talk about is always usually the girl victims, because boys don't want to talk about it. They're not going to come out, but because of this, people are coming out.
So this is male on male pedophilia. This big giant piece of the pie. It's 2,700 versus 900.
Right.
Exactly. So it's double.
Right. A lot of them are in sports. Some of them, it's just an astronomical amount of people. And what I wanted to say here is that they're expecting to be given 30,000 reports of new child sex offenses by the end of this giant inquiry, and that this chief constable of Norfolk Bailey, he calculated the continuing increase would mean that by 2020, police across the country would be investigating 200,000 cases of child abuse.
Wow. And you know what? That the numbers are disheartening, but it's heartening to see that something is actually happening.
And he says, remember, behind these figures is a victim, and he's saying that we are seeing an increase. This is something that's happening, increasing, and because of the internet. And the internet is a great tool to learn things, but it can also be used for great violence.
Yeah.
And you need to recognize that even yourself, if you start to click on one image, and then you click on another image, and the next thing you know, maybe you're a straight man, and you're looking at a girl who's maybe borderline 18, and then they're 17, and then they're 16, and then they're 15.
I would guess that the leap probably goes from straight pornography to the average guy, from what we've heard. It goes from straight porn to homosexual porn to child porn.
Exactly. And that happens to be across the board. So recognize that was the first image that you click on could lead you down this path.
And so I actually want to give a little bit of grace to these men that you all need to be in jail, but I want to give grace to you. Because I believe that the internet has made this spread like a virus. Right? And the reason why I say you need to be in jail is just to stop. It has to stop you. Not to say that you're the evilest, vilest person.
You say you all. Who are you identifying?
I'm identifying the sexual predators or the people that look at child pornography.
Right.
Right? So it has to be stopped, but it needs to be...
well, from the young men, we've had a tremendous amount of... a lot of conversations with young men who were on drugs. And it seems that they were molested, and then they went into porn, and a lot of them ended up into gay porn and gay things. Right. And it was a snowball of events.
Right. So I'm saying that these men, they aren't just evil people to the core, but because of the internet, because this is spreading, that's what I wanted to establish.
It's a zombie virus.
Yeah.
That if there was no internet, it would never cross their mind.
Yes.
To look at a child
we do not
think
have
about a child in that way.
A societal epidemic of evil people that have been born.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Exactly.
And I think a lot of people that make the argument where you're born gay or something like that. You're not just born gay. You're not just born all of this stuff. It really is. It's even Milo says it's 50% nurture, it's 50% nature. I don't agree with that statistic, but I'll take his.
Well, with
we can at least go that far.
pedophilia, it's like 100%
nurture.
nurture.
Meaning it is taught into you. It
Right.
happens to you.
And I know that there's actually a Salon came out heavily against Milo, and I guess we should throw this in there.
The Salon magazine
unpublished an article that I read when it first came out. It was highly disturbing, and it is in a pedophile apologetic article. It says, I'm a pedophile but not a monster. I don't act on it. And I know other pedophiles. And what that means is they have an unusual attraction to children. Now, I would like to explain this. If you're a pedophile watching, you do best to find yourself on an island. Okay, if you have never molested a child but you were attracted to them, find an island, go
But I'm
there.
going to guess, and this is going to be a big guess here, but I'm pretty sure I'm right, that you only really can identify yourself as a pedophile if you have looked at child porn.
Right.
So that's where you have to start. Where
Right.
I'm a pedophile, but I'm not a monster. But you're looking at child pornography, which, like I just said, doesn't exactly make you a monster, but it means that you have to protect society
I
from
was
yourself.
outside and I was making potting soil. And the best way I can describe this is the desire to do something with a child sexually is the same as the desire to hit them over the head repeatedly with a baseball bat. Okay? You need to recognize that it is not normal. It is a violent act to think it. So if you're thinking when you see a child, oh, look at that pretty child, I'd like to hit them over the head with a baseball bat until I crush their skull. Because that is what you are doing that is the act that is happening when you're thinking about a child in a sexual manner. If you know anybody who does that, the same thing that a sexual act to a child does is the same thing as crushing their skull with a baseball bat or stabbing them repeatedly with a knife.
Yeah,
so if you're having a conversation and my friend is a pedophile but he's okay, what you're saying is that your friend gets pleasure out of thinking about
harming children.
Literally, you have to put it in that perspective, in that box.
Right.
Because it's the same damage emotionally, internally, and physically.
If somebody were to tell you that they fantasized about going out and killing people,
right,
or hurting people,
right,
would you view it the same way? No, you wouldn't. You would say, you know what? You need to be admitted to a psychiatric ward because you could hurt people.
Exactly.
Just the thought of admitting that you want to hurt someone. Right. And so I think by the Salon putting out this article, which you don't need to read it because they can go and find it.
No.
By them putting out this article
Salon
originally,
took it down after they came after Milo Miles, but you put out this article about normalizing pedophilia.
Is their way of saying, as long as you don't act on your evil thoughts, it's okay to have them. And that's absolutely not true.
Especially in the case of children.
Right.
Because, listen, we are adults or you're teenagers and, hey, check out that guy, hey, check out that girl. Okay, that's a thing. Okay? But children is a violent act.
Right.
It is a violent act. What you would do to that child is murder their minds.
Right.
It's demonic.
It is
when
demonic.
you see a guy or you see a girl, what you're saying is, hey, hopefully, I'd like to hook up. I'd like to get to know that person. I'd like to eventually date that person and enjoy the company of that person. Okay? And then happily ever after.
So yeah, what Leah wanted to get to with this, just to reiterate it, because you said it really fast, was that after Salon came out with their stance against Milo
and others,
they had to take this article down because then it would...
Well, and let's be clear, I do believe that it was taken down before they came out against Milo.
Well, they knew
in
that they
January,
were going to come out with it.
But it was taken down January of this year.
Yeah, well, they knew.
Right.
They've had that footage on Milo for a year.
Right, exactly.
So
anyways.
All right, you guys, another hard subject for us to cover, but we had to do it.
Right.
This is Leah Michelle signing off for Resistance Chicks, where it's not a conspiracy theory. If it's the truth, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Mass Faith 3 and Resistance Chicks, and find us on Facebook where we can interact with you guys there on a daily basis.